Dun, 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 dun. Hey everyone, D here to finally wrap up our big 8-episode stretch of Ahsoka. So I don't think I need to say it, but spoilers definitely ahead for the Jedi, the Witch, and the Warlord. And of course, got a fabulous panel. We're wrapping things up like we started it off. Joining me, of course, as always, the man, the myth, the legend himself from SmirkingRobPlays. It's Rob Stone.
Yeah. And also, pretty soon, we'll be back on the main channel. We'll talk more about that at the end of the show. But otherwise, yeah, we've come to the end of yet another series cover, a season coverage on your channel, D, and it's I think it's a nice one to end on right now, So take it away, Marc, the real guest here.
Hey everyone, good to be here. Glad to be back for the big finale. Talk about the show, which I really enjoyed, really liked. So, yeah, been looking forward to jumping into this with you guys. So
Excellent. And of course, I really appreciate both of you joining us since Loki season 2 is premiering right as we speak over on Disney Plus. But we're having the real fun here.
I'll have to go check that. I thought it was next week. All right.
No, it used to be like the midnight thing, and they've moved it to the night before at 6. So yeah, that's actually going. It's taking over our time slot. I'm so mad at you, Loki. Anyway, we'll talk a little bit about that stuff before we wrap up the show later on. But yeah, well, Marc, you got to join us here from the beginning of the series. And I've caught several reviews over on Enchantment of Eternity. Go check that out. Make sure you subscribe to Marc there. So I'm really curious. What do you think? I mean, how did the series work for you overall? And how did this work for you as a finale? Did it give you what you wanted? Did it leave you in a good space?
Well, all right. So I think I was more positive than a lot of people in the first couple episodes. I think I was more positive than you guys over in the first half of the season. Sure. I would say episodes 4 and 5 were like pure masterpieces to me. I loved both of those episodes. I think both those episodes. I don't want to be too grandiose, but I think they're the best Star Wars, or my favorite Star Wars since the original trilogy. Live action. I'll have to put the live action in there because we can't forget about the finale of Clone Wars, but I'm talking about live action.
Sure.
I absolutely loved them. The Thrawn arc, at least the last 2 episodes, I think you guys liked better than I did. I still liked them. I didn't think it was like quite as amazing. And I was a little bit disappointed in some regards. And with this finale, I was actually quite disappointed. It wasn't as finite as I was hoping it would be. It left too many things open, too many balls in the air. There were some things in particular, Balin, which I'm very disappointed was not wrapped up in the finale. Now, Thrawn getting home, I'm okay with that. Like, that was I was expecting the season to end there.
Right.
But I wanted more with Ahsoka, more with Balin in particular. The thing is that season 2 hasn't been confirmed yet. And that really, really concerns me, because if there's not a season 2, this is going to be a terrible ending. So it's going to retroactively make me hate this episode more. Even if they resolve this in some other Dave Filoni project, for me, that would not be good enough. Like, I need an Ahsoka season 2 now. And I don't like that they ended it in that kind of place where it's so dependent on there being interesting resolution to it. I wanted... I knew some things were going to be left open. Like Thrawn, I knew was going to be left open. I wasn't expecting that to be resolved. But there was too much left open, in my opinion. And the finale itself, it was a good episode, but the 3-episode arc when they were in the other galaxy, I feel like we didn't get enough with Ezra, the reunion, finally having him. It wasn't as satisfying as I was hoping it would be. I don't think we got enough character moments with Ahsoka and Sabine and Ezra. I would have wanted more. I think they relied too much on the action side of things for that 3-episode arc. But then we did get some good character moments, particularly in the finale with Ahsoka and Sabine, which I'm sure we'll get into more. So I didn't totally hate it. I wasn't like utterly disappointed. I still liked it. I still loved it. It didn't ruin the show for me. I still love the show and say it's a great show overall. It's just the ending wasn't quite as strong as I was hoping it would be.
Yeah, and I would have fully expected them to be announced a season 2 at the end of this, so you know that it isn't. Because it definitely leaves the story in an expectation that other stuff is coming for that. Rob, what about yourself? I know, as Marcus said, we've all had little ups and downs with this season. How did this wrap things up for you? Did it leave you in a good space, but wanting more, or were you really kind of let down with some of the directions, or how did that pace out for you?
I mean, I'm gonna be pretty positive about it. I mean, for the way it started and the way it ended, I mean, I wasn't expecting. I mean, I knew what I was expecting. Thrawn's gonna win. And I don't think anything happened in this finale that made me, dislike it. I think overall, time will tell, like you're kind of saying, that depending on what they decide to do next with this will affect a lot of opinions on whether or not what really was this. But I think that I enjoyed watching something that I wasn't sure about, and it just slowly just kept getting better as it went along. And whether you find the finale satisfying or not, I mean, I think there's some things that you just can't know are going to happen that can affect things. But overall, when we've got Mandalorian season 3 and Boba Fett and Secret Invasion and other things that have just been kind of leaving a bad taste in my mouth, this is a nice, still, you can still see hope in the Star Wars universe. But at the end of the day, it's just a bit of fun, and I don't think it really should be taken that seriously. And again, I'm just happy to be alive in a time where I get to see all these characters come to life and on the big screen, and Dave Filoni getting a chance to show us what his animated vision looks like in action, live action. And for all the things that it isn't, what am I gonna do? I can either just accept it or not, and I choose to accept this. But like I said, time will tell whether or not what kind of impact this is gonna leave, depending on whether they do a second season, or is this gonna be a big, Heir to the Empire movie coming up, or what. There's so many things in the entertainment industry still so up in the air about what's coming back, what's not, that as a little mini thing that's like a little bookend to Rebels for right now, I'm happy with that. And it gave me some of what I wanted. I wanted more. I think that there's at least a couple more episodes in here where we could have gotten better character development for our characters. We get more detail, but there's things in here that, like, the disappointing parts, we're saying, oh, I guess we're really not going to deal with it in a way that would have been satisfying. But outside of that, I'm really happy that we talked about this show.
Wonderful. That's an excellent 30,000-foot level viewpoint there, Rob. And you're right. Again, coming from, the original series all the way up through the breadth between that and then the prequel trilogy, and then you had all the animation, the Clone Wars, and the sequel trilogy, suddenly all barreling up to give us all of this content, all of the slices of the universe, it is good to just go, yeah, maybe we should just enjoy what we have going on. And I do have to say, I mean, maybe I'm kind of in between the two of you right there, which is space. But I gotta say, I think for the most part, I enjoyed the finale. I mean, I thought it delivered basically what was expected for sure, and it had a couple of twists, like Sabine and Ahsoka remaining on Pridia while Ezra gets to go home. That's kind of a thing, but there's obviously a couple of stories that are trying to be set up, a couple of different directions, which is interesting. Though I gotta say, I think my biggest disappointment, again, if you can kind of call it that, was the entire chase to get Thrawn seemed particularly forced. Just because, I'm like, we know the Chimera can fly, it flew in. Why doesn't it just go up and meet the ring? As long as it leaves the surface, there's not going to be any problems. So there's some things where it kind of feels like, well, because we have to have this battle and we have to have these kind of little like last minute fights, we're just going to make that happen, as opposed to it happening for a reason. So those are the kind of that kind of basic setup for the episode. I think I did find a little bit frustrating. And then you have, again, the plot armor of, we have the massive aerial bombardment by the turbo lasers that doesn't hit anybody. The little things like that. It's also, as Marc had said, it's very unfortunate we didn't get to see more of Balin and Shin outside of the standing on giant statue and rejoining the Raiders moments. So I guess, it's little moments like this, as well as like some of the poor pacing and the feeling that there were just scenes that I missed, which we've talked about before, that kind of detracts from the series. Part of that's kind of a problem, was I think it leans so heavily on its Rebels and Clone Wars lore. For me, when you're doing a jump from like animation to live action, I think it's better to have elements in your show that, if you're familiar with these previous stuff, it adds information to it. You can appreciate it more. There's more of a bigger thing to it, but it still has to be explained and given to you in this. And I feel like sometimes there's almost too much expectations that you're bringing in a full knowledge of Clone Wars and Rebels into this, which detracts from the show. I know, sitting next to somebody who didn't see any of those things, kind of looking like, who's this? What's going on? Despite having seen almost all the other live action Star Wars things. So, I mean, again, there's kind of little storytelling issues that I have with that. But I would still put this on the upper echelon of Star Wars shows. Yeah.
That's a kind of an interesting thing, bringing up like the filling people in kind of stuff, that they didn't watch this. Disney loves to make stupid, well, I'm not going to call them stupid. I just did, but
They
love to make those little videos explaining things. Why haven't they done that for these other things, so that people could just go, here's this, watch this, you'll understand everything then? They do this all the time, and I feel like they could Cliff Notes this pretty quickly for people to just understand what they would need to know, like the really important bits, so that people like, your wife or anybody that doesn't know all the mythology to like at least get filled in.
Sure, but I don't think it's asking too much for the show itself to give the slightest amount of lore or background that sometimes is needed, just to pull that in, as opposed to just doing the wink or the nod or the assumption that we know what you're talking about here.
I want to bring up a comparison I made when I was reviewing this show, and I'm a little biased here because I had seen Rebels and Clone Wars before I watched this show, but to me, it reminded me of my experience watching the movie Serenity. because I had never even heard of Firefly when I saw that movie. I did not know Firefly existed. And I saw the movie, I enjoyed the movie, but I had a sense, like I could tell that it was based off of something else. I could tell there were some nods to the fan. Oh, look, it's this character. Oh, look, it's that character, which I could tell they were doing that, and it went over my head. But I still really enjoyed it. I still got the story. I still got the characters, and I feel like the same could be said for Ahsoka. And I know maybe for some people it's more nagging, not knowing that they're making references that's going over your head. But I feel like the character stories within this one show and the plot is pretty well self-contained.
That's a fair comparison because I did the same thing. I saw Serenity before I saw Firefly. And so I know exactly the feeling you had, but that did feel kind of complete. But also, I have issues where it's like, to me, it's in story sometimes where it feels like there was a scene that got cut that we didn't see that explained this moment or transitioned this thing, in a more logical sense. So, that's just one of my little kind of, critiques and feels of the story.
Well, yeah, I'll agree with that because I think, for example, we spent the time back in our galaxy or whatever, the main galaxy with Mon Mothma and those asshole senators and the Heir's trial, where I feel like that was unnecessary and they could have spent more time developing what was going on elsewhere.
Especially how this season ended, I have to say, that makes all of those scenes even more pointless. Yes. Because I don't feel like anything that was really set that carried forward or had any additional weight or anything. It was just like, hey, look, Heir's got complications dealing, being a general and trying to add up. So yeah, that's one little thing, but I have long complained about all of those sequences from the very beginning.
Yeah, me too. That whole storyline felt kind of forced and unnecessary just to create stakes. Oh, we're putting Heir's on the trial. We don't believe you like that. I don't know. I was never a fan of that whole thing.
Yeah. So again, if there's things that's built up in season 2, that's one thing. But yeah, I guess that's how we got to see Hera, and there was an importance about having that.
I wanted to talk just briefly about the plot armor.
Yes.
I had the same thought as you. Like, they should be pulverized right now. But I just thought to myself, if this was Han Solo and Luke Skywalker, would we be talking about this? No, we'd be going, yeah, they got in there. Yeah!
Well,
so no,
because they would have like 15, 20 other guys getting blown away next to them.
Yeah,
and they're the ones that made it.
I just meant that plot armor in Star Wars has never, been that big a thing. They've been doing so many crazy things in those movies that I just went, yeah, because Indiana Jones does it. It's the formula of the heroes can just, sure. At least they were doing something in that scene where they were, it was to me the epitome of like, we watch certain these parts of these movies we accept because we talk about the plot, things doing only for the plot and how that can drive us nuts. But I think it really also depends on, again, how much fun you're having, and it might speak to the actual level of fun we're having if we are calling it like, because we keep saying how much fun we're having, but we always seem to nitpick a lot about those things. But the same thing, we don't nitpick like the original trilogy like this, even though we know there are plenty of glaring things and stuff about it. We just forgive it. So I chose to not like I chose to eventually just go, yeah, it's fine. If this was everybody else and anything else, maybe, but it's Star Wars and this is what they do. It's it's supposed to be like, oh my God, it's raining hell on them. But they're really going to be fine.
Plot armor is the true manifestation of the Force.
All they needed was somebody to like grab Indy's hat as they closed that, and it would have made it, perfect.
That's true. It's true. I would have had no notes for the episode, and it would have ended perfectly, regardless
I
of what
mean,
else happened.
I had my big complaint was at the beginning with the pacing of this opening. Of like, how big of a deal do we got to make pulling out a magic sword? And like, if that was in a video game, you're sitting there, you paid the $60-$70 for the game, you want the pomp and circumstance of seeing the big spell get done and everything, and you're like, oh. But in a show, you're kind of like, yeah, we really didn't need to go this long on this like what would they call that, that they were doing a ritual, to this lady. It just felt like a really long beginning to just, okay, cool sword, and then what they do with it later just really wasn't that big of a deal. So it's like, why did you make such a big deal about this thing? I thought it was like going to be some crazy poison sword that was going to like infect Ahsoka and maybe kill her. Oh, that's why she can't go, because she's dying or something. But no, it's just sorry. That's all
Well, I wanted to touch on the plot armor thing because
Uh-huh.
I'm actually totally on board with you, Rob. I've learned with Star Wars to learn to not worry about those things. Like all the characters always have plot armor, the main characters do, and the side characters don't, and I just go with it. Like I would compare it to something like that doesn't work, something like Game of Thrones, whereas for the first 5 or 6 seasons, none of the characters had plot armor. Anyone can die at any time. Then all of a sudden, in the last 2 seasons, everyone has plot armor. That pissed me off, and that sucked. But with Star Wars, all the heroes always have plot armor, so you just go with it. I'm just used to it.
There's a consistency to it, and that's really what we appreciate. Make your choices, but just stick with them.
I mean, hell, the series even had a character who basically got the choice to live or die again. Like, you can die if you want, but you don't have to. Well, you can totally go back if you want. All right, I'll go back. I'm alive again. So, I'm not making fun of it. I'm just saying that's an example. Like,
No.
They literally, Anakin's like, here, I have some extra plot armor. I can't use it anymore. So, he just gave her his extra life.
Yeah. I know. I mean, again, I guess this is where I was, because it was like this whole time we're waiting for the 3 days to put everything up on board on the ship. And then, the episode opens with the cargo transfer complete. I'm like, all right, man, they're out of here. No, we're going to stick around while the big scion comes, and we've got to do some things and some stuff, even though they're pressing that, the Jedi are out there and they've got limited time. Though I got to say, look, Thrawn is perfect throughout all of this, I think. I think the characterizations are awesome. I love that they're consisting his learning approach to this. The fact that he kind of rebuts Morgana, who's like, nothing can stop us now. Wahaha, we're all better. And he's like, yeah, I've been around a lot of people that have said that thing before, and then they get screwed over. So let's just be sure. I mean, he even mentions it too. I too fell victim to a single Jedi. So I really do appreciate that consistency in with Thrawn, and I think that that's really important to keep the real fear of him. He's got to be right all the time until the very end, where he gets taken out. But up until then, he's got to be on top of it and ahead of everybody else every time, and I really appreciate that consistency there.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. I think that was another moment I liked. It sets Thrawn apart from all the, mustache twirly villains, even in Star Wars, the Darth Sidious and have you, whatnot, where they're like overconfident all the time. And it shows that he's not overconfident. It shows that he's practical, because this happens. You could pick a franchise where the hero keeps beating the villain over and over again. And they still be like, I still act like they can't be beaten. Where we show here a villain who's actually learned, like, why. Actually, I was myself underestimated Jedi, and that's why I ended up working here. So I'm not going to do it again. And sure enough, in this episode, he doesn't underestimate her at all, and so that's why he ends up winning. And I love that aspect of it. I thought that was great.
Yeah. So,
I have one question though. You
sure.
mentioned the cargo. Did we learn what that cargo is?
They just said they're from the crypts down there. So we are making assumptions that they are bodies, magic, something. Then they end up at Dathomir is the first place they arrive, and he's overlooking all of the whatevers they have pulled up.
Oh, so it's part they're going to make more zombies.
So yeah, I'm assuming these are all zombie ingredients of one form or another.
I still wish that would have been explained explicitly, personally. But anyway.
Well, I mean, it is something they definitely have to lean into, because specifically going to Dathomir, there's got to be that connection of, okay, why here? I think the Emperor wiped out most everyone on Dathomir. If I
was it? Oh, yeah. It was what's his face? Dooku.
Dooku, right? So, rebuilding a life, a world there, and that's the purpose of the Great Mothers. That is something that should have some time spent in, but that depends on if we get a second season or whatever the next Thrawn stage of this is going to be. So they do the thing. We get our nice little witchy formy scene, our signification that Morgan's going to die by the end of the episode. We have to level you up so we can take you out, but we'll talk about that in a bit. But we do get a bit of Ezra building his lightsaber and talking to Hu Yang, which I thought was a very cool kind of character bit. I love the little Kanan reference, and we get some more master apprentice bit. So I got to say, I think my favorite bit is we finally got that Sabine Ahsoka background that I have been craving since the series began, and to me it's weird because it's like a perfect place to put this information with Ezra getting caught up, but it's also so weird that we had to wait so long for this basic kind of clue bit of information. Like, yeah, her people all got wiped out in the Night of 1,000 Tears, and she was afraid that she might go dark if she continued to train her. That's awesome. That's such a great story bit. I really wish I knew this earlier, but I'm glad they shared it at least.
Well, I mean, I alluded to this part earlier, and I mean, if I was gonna gripe, this would be where the gripe comes in, where it's like they already talked about this though. Like we know this. Ezra doesn't. So it's nice that Ezra knows too. But it's just the way they handled this whole thing that like my biggest complaint is a bunch of off-screen stuff happened, and we're just like that would be where I would, if I was your wife watching this, then I'd really be like, okay, not only do I not know the Clone Wars and Rebels, but now the show also doesn't let me know what happened before this other stuff that I don't know either.
Yeah.
So compound all that, it's kind of frustrating. It would be frustrating to watch, and it was frustrating to sit there and then just have them like wipe the protocol droids mind line. I just kind of throw away again. Everybody dead. Yeah, we already knew that. Great. So that was it. Thanks. That was the only time where I was just kind of like. I mean, up until that moment for me, with the whole lore of the training, the younglings and stuff, that was I loved that, the building and how they do the lightsaber and even the back and forth about it. And again, like I said, it was nice that Ezra finds out. But for the rest of it, for me, I don't know how the rest of everybody else feels, but I'm just kind of like, that all this hemming and hawing over stuff that would have had a greater impact if they had shown it.
Yeah.
It would have.
Mark?
Yeah, I still like that we got that, like you, Darren. I like that we got more backstory. We got specifics about the fact she was too worried to train her because she might go too dark because her world was just wiped out. And I'm kind of in agreement with you. Like, this was a perfect place to put it, but it would have been nicer to know this at the start of the show and not waiting till the finale to reveal this, because I think that does show a lot, and I do think that's a legitimate concern, that for Ahsoka to have that. But I love Ahsoka's new attitude towards Sabine after she's become Ahsoka the White or whatever, has this new look on life. I think that's one of my favorite aspects of the show, the moments they share and her new attitude towards Sabine.
Yeah, I mean the place where when she goes out on the wing and they have that little back like, oh, and yeah, and then she kind of relates it. Hey, I made a lot of bad choices. Some people didn't understand, but you know who always had my back? My master. So you know what? I'm always gonna have your back.
And I think she's realizing that she should have had that attitude all along, and that she's correcting
it. Yeah, Rob.
I just think that if the show had opened on the Night of 1,000 Tears, that would have just made the whole thing, like the complaints I would have had at the start of the show about like leaving all this there, it just would have changed. Like it would have, my opinion of the show wouldn't just be, yeah, it's fine and nice. It would have definitely had this review be more like, this was through and through, all the way through, beginning to end, like a full story that I enjoyed. And like right now, I liked it fine, but I still have the way that they told this story was still kind of a little too, I don't know, fractured in places it didn't need to be.
Well, I think that for me, that same complaint would also apply to Mandalorian, because the whole Night of 1,000 Tears, that all took place off screen before that as well, and I felt kind of disconnected. There was a missing piece between Rebels and that we never actually get to see on screen.
Yeah.
No, I completely with you both. Though I have to say, like, okay, if you're concerned if she finishes trade, she's going to turn to the dark side because she's trading for her anger. Is leaving her all alone in that space before you finish her trading the best place to leave her? I mean, that's
it's before she has all the Jedi powers.
Sure. So, you can look at it either way. I did have one question because this is the first time that I noticed it, and it shows up later on throughout the episode, but I didn't remember seeing it anywhere else, and maybe just because it's always very lit. The two little glowy strips on Sabine's chest plate, have those always been there?
I didn't notice them at all, so this is news to me.
Yeah, so when she's leaning against there listening to Hu Yang and Ezra, it's the first time I'm like, wow, she's got these little like glow spots, and I noticed them like periodically throughout the episode, unless there's like heavy light straight on her, and I'm like, did I just not see this before, or is this new? Anyway, I was just wondering if anybody else saw that. Because again, it's still super cool, and I love everything about Sabine's outfit. Yeah, so we get the nice little in, then the TIEs come and attack, take out the ship. I was kind of wondering why the ship was going with a Naughty. I keep wanting to call him Naughty, but then I just feel that seems wrong. Why they were escorting the Naughty, because I'm like, doesn't that kind of make them a target? Which it does. But at the very least, Ezra says, we can go now, I'm done. So they were just waiting for him to finish his lightsaber before they went out and attacked Thrawn, which to me at least gave a nice little explanation.
But Darren, the real explanation is that they're cute merchandising opportunities.
And I can't argue with that.
They're $80 Lego sets,
It's also good to know that the ship can't take a couple of blaster hits, but it can ram 2 TIE fighters and be mostly fine. I mean, it does crash right afterwards, but it's not like the wings seem damaged. It seems still all the engine area. But they can still fix it pretty quick, which is just really what Hu Yang's all about. He's a master mechanic and Jedi trainer, lightsaber instructor. He covers everything. So yeah, it basically just gets us going. And so we get to our big attack. And this is like one of those first moments where I ask, and again, I'm stupid and I will admit this, but I'm like, where'd they get the howlers? The things they're riding on. Dun, 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 dun.
A lot of things in this show keep happening off camera, Darren.
My favorite is at the end, after all this, they ride back with howlers, and I'm like, you rode them into the fortress, and the fortress was collapsed. Where did you get? I shouldn't ask these questions.
So, yeah, I'm thinking of those pitch meeting videos where sometimes he answers a question like this by saying, "Oh, they did it by being off screen."
I don't know. Excellent. Yeah, exactly.
It was the camera operator. He's supposed to go a little further over in the shot,
No,
and they didn't catch it in editing. So
it does the Blazing Saddles bit where the camera pans over to the crew in the background, and they've got all of the wranglers there with the various horses.
Somebody's putting up a cardboard cutout of a howler, and it just falls over. That sounds like something that would happen in Futurama.
That's exactly it. But yeah, so we get our big attack, and again, I like the fact that Thrawn's like, great, TIE fighters engaged. We didn't hear from them. Acceptable losses. Let's assume that they're lost. Give commendations to the captain. Where are they? Let's get the next going. And again, it's like, let's go. And yet, they can still get to them before they manage to take off. I realize it's plot mechanics. I'm just going to complain about it here and then move on. We already talked about the blaster fire, the rain hell down upon them. Or I don't know what he said exactly, but he did it in that cool Thrawn voice, which doesn't help. And we get our troopers, which agree to stay. Which I've heard some people have mentioned that all of them are these zombies, and I don't think that's the case. I think some of these are people, but these are volunteering. Like, yeah, we know that we'll probably be killed and then turned into zombies, and we'll do that for Thrawn because Thrawn's the man.
Yeah. I don't think any of them are zombies yet.
Yeah.
I think they were all alive, and so the part of it was assumed that they knew they agreed to die. They knew they were going to die and be brought back to life as zombies, and they agreed to that.
Or at the very least, they're going to be left behind on the planet, and they can't come home, and they'll have to join the Raiders. The guys in red hats, not the football team. But they could. They've got the uniforms. I guess.
Neither of those options sounds appealing.
Also agreed. But we get our cool fights, and I gotta say, I thought the fights were mostly good. Definitely, and we'll get to it. The Morgan Ahsoka fight is just beautiful. I'm almost putting that one up there with Duel of the Fates. I loved how that was done, and I appreciate the kind of large thing, but we'll get to that. We get our zombie attack initially, which, again, I thought it was cool. Most of the cool part is when they're all brought back to life. Otherwise, it's just Jedi standing in a line, swinging sabers and hitting them back until they kind of step in. Would really have loved more like arms flying off. I guess it's Disney Plus, and you can't do that. Is there a TMA a TV rating for arms lopped off for amputations? No, maybe. Okay. But yeah, what did you guys think about our big zombie encounter? Mark, let's start with you.
It was adequately creepy. Like I kind of saw it coming. I think it did make it raise the stakes a bit because it showed how terrifying they were. That because it depends. Certain zombies have been played different ways, and some zombies you can kill, but these ones are obviously just won't die. You gotta chop off their head or something. And I think it did sort of raise the stakes of it. So yeah, I thought it was paid off.
Yeah.
That was good.
I like the idea they have to be killed and then they reanimate. So they fall and then come back up.
Yeah.
Which was cool. Rob?
I mean, I should hate it. I should hate it, but I don't. I mean, I even love the almost comically bad.
Sure.
Like, I mean, it sounded like, Frankenstein's monster and everything. Just, "Rawr, rawr, rawr." But you know what? I just like, I like the introduction of like, well, not the introduction, but I like them continuing with the magical realm and mixing that with all this other stuff. It's a lot of fun. It's just that I guess it's the whole zombies are been done to death thing that I can understand if people don't like it. I really can, because it's just kind of like, really, zombie. Like, remember when I finally opted out of Fear the Walking Dead, right?
Oh
Remember?
yeah.
It was zombie tornado.
Yeah, that same here.
I was like,
Yeah.
fuck you, I'm out. So
I
I
didn't-
mean, everybody's got their line. Everybody's got their line, and if that's somebody's line for this show, I understand. But I was here for the insanity of it, and I appreciate it. I like going up the stairs and just being surrounded. Like it's like, is this Star Wars? And again, if you don't like that, you're welcome to it. But I'm welcome to try new things and see new things in the Star Wars galaxy that isn't just Empire versus Rebels. And so I was here for it.
Nice. Well, yeah, they're really more magically reanimated corpses than zombies. I mean, you can do a lot more with those things. But yeah, we have talked about how kind of, because I'm also all for it. We've done a lot with Star Wars, but it's a big, weird universe, and yeah, or even galaxy. Let's add this kind of fun little element. We haven't played with this area before. I'm good with that.
Well, I think this moment also felt very reminiscent of what they've done in the Clone Wars in the past with the Witches of Dathomir.
Yeah.
So yeah, didn't feel too out of place for me.
No, not at all. So yeah, speaking of the Witches of Dathomir, this is of course when we find out that since we have the Eye of Sion coming down to link up with the ship, which can't leave its position right now, still need to buy some more time. So the newly leveled up Morgan is asked to stay, which we obviously can tell is a sacrifice. Thrawn knows it. She knows it. Even if she wins, she's going to be left on the planet all by herself, along with, I guess, maybe some undead troopers. I did find it really interesting that Thrawn has always been like, this is for the Empire. He says it in another moment before, they'll stay for you. It's like, not for me, for the Empire. It's like, that's what we're here for. And that's exactly what he tells Morgan here. And Morgan, after he leaves, is like, for Dathomir. Which I think is an interesting difference of, again, it's like with the Great Mothers. Their goals are aligned, but their goals aren't necessarily the same thing, which I thought was kind of a cool bit to leave for Morgan here. Any thoughts on that?
The first, okay. So when she's told this, I mean, look, going off of her character from Mandalorian, right? And she's gone along with a lot. And it looks like on the surface that she's getting the things that she wanted. Now she has to pay the price for that. And she's one of those characters who I don't think she thought that she would have to be sacrificed. Right?
Yeah.
So even if, and I think it's a testament to the actors to have to act like we don't also know what she's really thinking. So she can't present absolute anger, rage that she's feeling that she is being betrayed. She is seeing exactly what her place really is in all of this. And how valuable, and how valuable she is and how easily she can be thrown away. But she shows almost nothing of that. But this character enough that in her head, it's where she would have the proverbial, it was in this moment that she knew. She fucked up. But she holds it all inside and says, for Dathomir, because I think in some ways this character, that's the moment the character just boop, bye. Here goes like she just goes mad, in my opinion. And I'm just I'm putting this all on the character myself.
Sure.
Not that don't anybody hold me to like that you have to think the same way. I'm just inferring it all because of what I think this character's inner thoughts really are, knowing her background. And so I just think that she's just boop, and this is it. And she has a really great fight. We'll get to that. But I think she's just gone crackers there, and she's just like she's gonna still try to justify her absolute like what's she gonna do? You know, she just kind of accepts her fate in some weird way, and just I don't know. I know I probably shouldn't have dove that deep into her psyche, but I just couldn't help it in this case for some reason.
Well, no, I mean, Diana Lee Innocenta, who's playing Morgan Elsbeth, I haven't always necessarily been the biggest fan of her character, but I do love these little moments where there definitely is something going on. You're right, because she does see that, and you see there is a whole thought process you can see going on, and whether it's he's like, well, you're doing it for the Empire, I'm really doing it for Dathomir. Where is her allegiance really lying in all of that? What is her motivation? Obviously, I think more to the witches than Thrawn, as we see right here. But I don't think that it's wrong to assume what their motivations are. There is stuff happening. You can do it, so you are allowed to go in and like, what is that? What is that that's going on? And the fact that we can see that process happening, I think is a great character and acting moment to include us in the audience to really see that internal monologue happening, even if we don't hear it. Mark?
I guess I interpreted it a little bit differently because I didn't see her as feeling betrayed. Maybe like I think what you said earlier about realizing her place in the hierarchy was not quite as high as she thought it would be. But I think that she was happy to sacrifice herself for the cause, but of course the cause being Dathomir, not the Empire.
Yeah.
But I think that because she was willing to do her part in stopping Ahsoka. But the more cynical, practical side of me thinking that this was just a cheap way for the show to write her off, which I was not pleased with, actually. I didn't like that they did this. I felt like they've been building this character, and to have Thrawn just discard her like this, it seems like kind of a waste. Like, what was the point of this character? I don't know. I would have preferred if they kept her on.
Sure, and honestly, I could agree with you on that one too. It was
especially as Rob mentioned earlier, especially after spending like 5 minutes on the scene was showing her powering up with the great sword and everything. Like, this seemed like all that build up was for nothing, really.
Yeah, no, it was just the power up for the next big battle and so on. And it is another one of those unfortunate things where it's like, here's an actor that's still around whose character has died, and we will be touching on later on the character who's still around whose actor has died. And Star Wars has had some bad luck on making some wrong choices there lately.
Do we know she's dead?
It is Star Wars, so that's a good point.
People getting stuck with lightsabers all the time. Should be dead.
Well, she got hit by the lightsaber and her own sword, and that's usually the thing.
Well, what if the sword's like somehow, what if whatever's in that sword could actually help her?
And wasn't she also on that building that Thrawn destroyed on his way out as well?
Yeah, it's probably true. She's
yeah. How did she survive? Well, she was off screen.
Way off.
Yeah.
She rolled. Yeah, she just rolled with it, man.
Right,
she just rolled with it. She slid down.
I think that would be
She just went limp. She went limp and just went like
just surfed the building down as it collapsed.
Yeah,
that would be testing me if they bring her back.
Because again, they obviously built her up in order to take her out here. And I agree. that was kind of an unexpected move. But I think, again, this whole sequence to me was like, well, we have to have action, so we just have to have a reason to stick around and throw things at our heroes until we can have the finale moment. But again, this did get us to, honestly, maybe my favorite fight in Ahsoka, and maybe since Duel of Fates. And I have complained a lot about some of the choreography on this, but I also love how they shot this. And it was Rick Famuyiwa. Always mess up his name. Famuyiwa. He's done Mandalorian episodes and such like that. Very good director. I love the fact that they did sequences where they just zoomed the camera out and just had them fight back and forth across frame. That was awesome. They threw in kicks. They threw in a bunch of different variances in later on. And especially having a single weapon versus a double weapon where it didn't look like there were moments where we were waiting to strike so that they could block it. I thought that it flowed very beautifully. Again, this is Dana Inosanto. This is what she does. This is why she's there, is to do stuff like this. And I think if you're going to take out the character, this is a hell of a fight to end it on for them. And I just thought that was beautifully well done. We of course also get Sabine finally using the Force, which I thought was a great bit and a great moment in order to do that. I don't totally buy that she's like has the confidence to go and help Ezra force jump and push him afterwards. I'm like, whoa, you just grabbed a lightsaber that was like 6 feet away from you, and now you want to push a jump. Anyway, I won't complain about too much, but I did like that, and just the quick like stab to the head to take out the Dark Trooper and stuff. I thought that was very good. But yeah, any comments on our, I don't know, fight part 2? Are we at part 3 now?
All right, so I'm going to be the cynical one here. I was not that impressed with this fight. It was okay. Honestly, I preferred the ones in episode 4 with Baylan and Ahsoka. And for me, and I appreciate, people who appreciate fight choreography and, cinematography involved, but I'm more concerned on the story of the fight, like what's it trying to say, what's the power of it. And I think in episode 4 we had a strong story involved with the Baylan and Ahsoka, different characters. Right here, it's just Morgan trying to slow down, trying to delay Ahsoka, and that's pretty much all there is to it. I know that she's sacrificing herself in order to do it, but to me, I wanted the episode to get to more things that it didn't get to, which was also frustrating me. And it's not saying it's a bad fight or I didn't like it. I just didn't think it was grand or that great. And honestly, some people compared it to the Ahsoka fight with Morgan in Mandalorian. I actually kind of like that one better, just from a cinematography perspective, because just the way it was shot and the music that it reminded me a lot of Tarantino and Kill Bill, but of course it's all based off of the Kurosawa and samurai movies like that. And I was actually more impressed with that than this. This seemed like a generic fight scene to me. I know I'm the pessimist one here, but yeah.
No, not at all. In fact, that is really an excellent point, because yes, you are quite right. The Baylan Ahsoka fight is much more character driven and intense in that way, and meaningful as a fight than this last one is. Because you're right. While I like the choreography and I like some of the cinematography and such that is used to carry this fight, and the variations of moves, which I don't remember seeing in the original the Morgan Ahsoka fight from Mandalorian. From a choreography standpoint, I think there is a lot more complex, interesting things that are happening in this fight versus that one, which I found to be a little bit more slower paced and a lot of more like posing moments and things like that. But from a character standpoint, you're right. That one is far more powerful, which just makes me want to go, okay, can we find a fight that has the two of those things in it? Because you're right. A fight doesn't mean anything unless there is reason for the characters to do it. And there was a lot more in that, whereas this one is just like, this is the fight until one of us dies. And then the other one can move on to the next scene. And that's really what it is, especially once the night troopers come up and surround them, and then they just kind of stop to watch. And, I want to say Code 66. It's not that. Anyway, instead of just the stormtroopers taking out the Jedi like they did back at the end of Clone Wars and the Big Purge and such like that.
Order 66.
Order 66. God, why is that word just execute Order 66? That's it. I got to do it in the Emperor voice, and then it is. So that was the only thing where I'm like, obviously we've got to have this just choreography fight. There's not a story going on right here. Mark, Rob, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I'll say that I'll try to say something. I think that if they were going to do the second fight, something should have happened to Ahsoka or something to make the stakes. Like, it was just them fighting again and Ahsoka eventually having her number because she has friends that, Sabine is there. And it just felt like, okay, they're just fighting again. But within that, the fighting I actually thought was good. So the fight choreography and all of that was exciting. But the reasons, it's just she's the sub boss that was like left behind. Your princess is in another castle. Throwaway villain. The real villain takes off, and you're stuck there with these people, and you're probably gonna die. And so it's just kind of like after what we've gotten to see from this character, it's a disappointing way to end it if she is dead, which she probably is.
Oh, and you also, Darren, you mentioned the whole force push.
Yeah.
I told her in episode 4 where she thought she was grabbing the lightsaber or trying to force push Shen back, and she's like, "You have no power," and there was a fake out where she's just doing that. I thought that was clever because it showed obviously Sabine couldn't do a force power like that. And now she's able to. It does seem a bit cliche that she's able to do it at the last moment. And I don't know if I incredibly buy it. But once I buy into that, her taking the lightsaber to kill the Death Trooper, her pushing Ezra, I can also buy into that because sure, why not?
Now she's got the feel for the force.
I've actually got the episode on right now on mute. And I forgot that the witches had that sense to say, "Oh, Morgan's dead." I think I trust the witches, and unless she's like sending her a whisper that's like, "Tell everybody I'm dead, but I'm just gonna write this thing down to the bottom."
We're gonna do a cut where we hear this whee as the whole thing falls and Sabine and Ahsoka fly away. Which, again, very cool, very cliche. Jump off the cliff, but there's the ship that's waiting for you. What is it? I think it was Back to the Future is the one that I always remember when he goes off the edge there and the DeLorean flies up. I did like the shots of them continuing to shoot and them standing on the ship and blocking the lightsabers and stuff just as the thing starts to collapse. Composition-wise, I really enjoyed that. And then, of course, the last push, the almost got him. Which, I appreciate the fact that they didn't get onto it. It definitely adds like, whoa, I was definitely not expecting them to be left behind. Though, again, I do love Thrawn getting on, like, it's almost a Star Trek, open a channel. It's just like, hey, sorry I didn't meet you. Bye. What was the idea? I knew you is this what he says, that I knew your master? I knew how you would act because I knew your master, and I just assumed you would act the same. It's a nice kind of like little FU moment, I think, from Thrawn before literally leaving them in the space dust.
Well, I think it's more than an FU moment. I think he's genuinely showing respect.
Oh yeah, oh for sure,
Yeah,
for sure.
I love that moment. I thought that really made the episode for me. I thought that was an absolutely great moment. It does show again the difference between Thrawn and how he's a much more dynamic character. But I do wonder how they're going to handle this in season 2, because there will be a season 2 with how Ahsoka is going to reassess how she deals with Thrawn in the future, learning more about how he's able to anticipate her will she be more unpredictable or whatnot. So that will be really interesting to explore in the season 2. That will happen.
I can't disagree with that. And I think, yeah, well, she definitely has the kind of like looser attitude again in her new manifestation of finding the balance within her as well. I think that could be something. And we talk a lot about the relationship has been talked a lot about in this between master and apprentice. And it could be one of those where, starts going after a little bit of Sabine style coming into her. Well, Sabine starts to take a little Ahsoka style. And then, yeah, now it's going to be something a little bit different. I really like that thought there, Mark. So then we basically get where everybody is left afterwards. We get Sabine and Ahsoka returning back to the Naughty, back to the cute little merchandise guys. Gonna hang out with them again. I'm not gonna ask where they get these howlers. They're all over the place. There's all sorts of what is it, like Skyrim? You just found a little place around the corner down the street there where you could get those. We do start to leave our little like hints for later on or things like this. One, we get our nice mystical owl showing back up at the end, which I believe is a manifestation of one of the daughter and such, which we will get into because that ties in directly into Balin. We finally get our final shot of Balin standing on the giant statue hand, which again, for Clone Wars aficionados, you can instantly recognize that is a statue of the father, one of the Morty gods. Mortis, one of the Mortis. Yeah. Which was Clone Wars season 3 episodes, I think 15, 16, and 17, where you have the Mortis gods are basically kind of like manifestations of the Force, or I don't know, they're a big kind of complicated thing. There's the father who represents balance, there's the son who represents the dark side, and there's the daughter who represents the light side. And yeah, I think when she dies, her force kind of goes into the owl, which has been a big sign for Ahsoka.
Yeah, and the important thing about that too is that their portrait was the entryway for the world between worlds.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Which was one of the last episodes of Rebels. Well, and that basically ties in, and we've talked about this, I think, last week, maybe the week before, which is, well, we have the father, the son, and the daughter, though the daughter's statue is headless in this last little shot, whether that means anything by age or something else. One thing that we don't see is the mother, who is not one of the Mortis gods, but has been theorized that while the father is the balance of the Force, the mother would represent the chaotic nature of the Force. And that would be a manifestation of Abeloth, which, if you're into Star Wars Legends and all of the old book, Abeloth is like this freaking Force demon psychotic that's imprisoned on a planet in the middle of the Maw, which is that ring of black holes that's around Kessel. And she can reach out through space to Force-sensitive people, drives them nuts. There's this whole thing with Centerpoint Station in the Yuuzhan Vong invasion where they hide a bunch of kids away from the Yuuzhan Vong and the Maw. but unfortunately it's too close to Abeloth and drives like half of them all insane. None of the legend stuff means anything anymore, but they might be using this character as perhaps what Balin is searching for, because the father, son, and the daughter are all dead. They died in Clone Wars. But maybe the mother is here and they're going to use Peridia as the tomb for her as opposed to the planet in the middle of the Maw. Though if she connects to Force users, what's up with the Witches of Dathomir? I don't know, because that should have driven them all insane. Maybe it did. But that's one of the possibilities that we may be leaving on for Balin. Unfortunately, of course, Ray Stevens has passed. So I guess the question is, is the role important enough that they're going to recast him? Or will they respect the actor and we're just going to find Balin's charred body in the temple that Shin goes into, or perhaps Ahsoka and Sabine in whatever season 2 is, and then maybe we'll get an animated tale of that from like Tales of the Jedi or something like that. I did want to take a moment and talk about this because Balin's been freaking awesome, and Ray Stevens has done an amazing job. And we were definitely, if only he was Morgan, though, then he would be dead, and we would be like okay with moving forward on this. It's one of those real unfortunate things where the actor's passed away, but the character is still alive. Do you guys think that they're going to recast him? Do you feel it's important enough to hold on the character? Or do you think that we're just going to have to take him off screen and have some sort of, again, like they find his charred body as a threat to whatever's in this temple, like he got killed trying to open it up, or, you know, some variant off of that? What do you guys think is going to happen with Balin now?
I think they should recast him, but I don't know if they will. Because anyone they recast is definitely not going to live up to Ray Stevenson in this role. But I think the way they left this character open-ended like this, if they start the next season with finding his charred body, I don't know. I think there's really no good solutions here, but recasting, I think, is the least bad choice.
And, I mean, it can work. I mean, when Richard Harris passed away, he did get, they did recast Dumbledore. They didn't like take out Dumbledore from the rest of the books.
Yeah.
And I think that's a recast that worked very well, if not even better. In fact, I was talking with someone the other day, and they completely forgot that Richard Harris played Dumbledore for the first 2 movies. Who's unfortunately, he passed away now just recently as well. So I mean, I think a recasting can work. Rob, what do you think they're going to do with Balin?
Well, first it's like, who knew that they actually? Well, I mean, I didn't think that they had grander plans for him. Really, that they were gonna be like something really different. Like taking us, continuing down this journey of like, Star Wars Legends. And I at the time I had just said I hope that they give him a good death against somebody and we move on. So it's even worse now that he's passed because of where the potential for this character to go went. Mm-hmm. And so there's no really great choice. I wish they had recast T'Challa, so I don't want them to do that, not do it again. So if they can find somebody, and I today have spent a bunch of time racking my brain for somebody who could bring that gravitas, and so far I got nothing. But that doesn't mean anything. I'm just trying to think of somebody. Maybe they'll find somebody. I hope that they do, but if they don't, I would rather just see him they find his remains. I don't know if I want them burned to a crisp or anything.
Yeah, I mean,
it would be cooler if he was just kind of, they find him in his clothes and he can just be kind of vague about what happened to him. Maybe he got he touched something that sucks the life out of him and he's just a skeleton or something. I don't know. million ways to handle this.
Sure.
But recast, don't recast. But make sure to continue with this story. Don't give up on this story. At least.
Yeah. Well, I think that's it. I think what they do probably really depends on what the plan is from this. Because you're right, this could be one of those where, oh, he was going to be killed in the beginning of the next of season 2, whatever. Because he touches something and his whole life force gets sucked out of him, and that's how you know that it's dangerous. They may do something as simple and straightforward as that, or it could be kind of a again, I don't know what the story was that they're going. He's searching for something, and Shin is still on the planet with him, so there's still a potential that they could meet up, or at the very least, Shin gets called by Baylan to follow up where they are. So, but you're right. As long as they keep the story going.
All right, so I had a huge rant, a lot to say about this whole ending stuff here, because this was easily the part about the episode that bothered me the most, because I think just setting aside Ray Stevenson's passing for the moment, I think they did Baylan dirty in this episode. I think the way they were setting up, like for especially the past couple episodes, even from the very beginning, he's talking about, going to the other galaxy is power more than you can ever imagine. They were building up to it, and then they were setting up in the past couple episodes where he was like, oh yes, really searching. I want to start hinting at starting all over again and doing something even greater that beyond what Thrawn's trying to do with building the Empire. And I think we needed to have that answered this season. I think it is. I think it is bad story writing, and it really irritates me that they did not resolve this season. Now, maybe not resolve; it's a bad word. They could have left it open, but they needed to answer what he was searching for. And I remember I got a comment on my last video when I brought this up of saying, "Oh, didn't you notice the owl? And didn't you notice the statue?" Yeah, I noticed those things, but that's not fucking good enough. Like, I hinting at something that you would only caught if you've seen all of Clone Wars, if you watch these YouTube videos, if you're like really searched in the lore of Star Wars, that you have to be in order to get these tiny references. That is nowhere near good enough. We needed a specific answer, something. And again, this is getting to general audiences who don't follow Rebels or Clone Wars. Like, there's maybe someone who's watched Clone Wars casually like years ago. They're not going to remember the shit with the father and the mother and all this.
No.
And especially catch it from the statue or the owl or whatever. Like, this is what really bothers me. That, to me, that is not making up for it. Now, maybe if there was a season 2, and maybe the whole point is that, all this is setting up for something huge in season 2, which is made worse. This is where Ray Stevenson's passing has come in. It's made worse by the fact that he's passed. And that's why I say they need to recast him. Because it seems like they were building for a longer, drawn-out storyline that can't be resolved. I don't think, anyway. My guess would not be satisfactorily resolved by saying, here's his corpse all of a sudden, now he's dead. Like, I think they unfortunately set up Baylan as a central character, and I really think they shouldn't have done that. I really think, at the very least, they should have answered what the hell it was he was looking for, and not just hinting at something only really deep Star Wars nerds would catch. I think that was a mistake, and that's probably what irritates me the most about this episode. I think they did the character of Baylan dirty in this episode, particularly knowing that this is Ray Stevenson's last on-screen performance, and he appears in like 5 seconds of the episode. It really bothers me. I really wanted more of him and less of freaking a glowing sword and whatever zombie bullshit that we got in this episode. So yeah, that was my biggest complaint about this episode.
I can't agree with you more. I think you're totally right. This, adds, even if you're leaving on a cliffhanger, that's not a cliffhanger of him looking at stuff and just still being on the planet. That's like where he was last week.
Yes.
It's one of those where it's like, yeah, if he had found a temple and gone in and suddenly got a burst or view of whatever the thing, and that's the cliffhanger you're going to leave, at least you're right. that gives us an answer, even if we don't totally understand where it is, but we understand, oh, he has found this thing that he was searching for, and then we will find out what all that implicates later on. I mean, if only they had more time. Where could they have gotten more time in this season? What could they have excised from this season to give them a little more time to focus on? Yeah. No, and you're right, especially it's the last episode, and you only get like 15 seconds of him standing on the edge here, and that was one thing we talked about last week. Rob and I talked about last week, like, okay, what's gonna happen with Balin, man? He ducked out of this thing last time, but he watched the whole fight, and it's like, yeah, what is it that he's going after? And it's like, I found Google Maps. It's just not as exciting.
I'll also say, like, the way in last week's episode, the way he just dismissed Shin felt kind of out of nowhere and out of character, and I didn't like that either.
Well, yeah, it felt like he had built her up. I mean, literally, it was just it. I don't know,
like the episode right before that, he's like, "Oh, you're made for greater purpose."
Yes.
And he's like, "Oh yeah, you go off and do your thing." And she didn't even go with Thrawn, so I don't understand what they were doing with her either.
No,
to see her show up with the Raiders, like I don't care about that.
I've been racking my brain listening to you guys, and the only person I can come up with is Josh Brolin. That's the only person I can reasonably put in my head that's like intimidating, has presence, already established as a powerhouse in Marvel, at least.
That's a good choice.
That is a good pull, man. I saw somebody recommend Russell Crowe, but I think that he might be a little
no.
A little bit. He's got a certain level of presence. No. But versus Josh, I would go with Brolin.
Yeah,
like,
I don't think Russell Crowe has the gravitas.
Yeah,
and Brolin has that quiet man, reserved, no country for old men, presence.
Yeah, I mean, he is in house effectively. You're just bringing Thanos back over to a galaxy far, far away. I think that works. Now at least somebody got home. Ezra gets reunited with Hera in oddly one of the more uncomfortable scenes that I saw. Okay, especially considering how the series kind of opened up. You're gonna let an Imperial shuttle land without knowing who's flying it? I don't care if that's why they all coming up with the guns. I'm like, why is he still wearing the Stormtrooper outfit? Obviously, it's just for the audience reveal.
Yeah.
Also, no hug? Really? Come on.
Yeah.
But that was the other thing. I mean, I liked him coming back and I liked that moment, but it's like, to me, this is one of those more manufactured, because again, you should know who's in the shuttle before it lands. There's no reason for him to still have the Stormtrooper outfit and do a reveal there. And even everybody there is like guns on him, and then they see him come down and they all like drop their guns at the same time. Like, oh, is it? None of you know Ezra. There's two people. It's Chopper, who probably recognizes his gait, which is why he goes up. And there's Hera, that I totally get would see it, but everybody else has the same kind of timing and response of.
I like the moment with Chopper. I thought that was cool that he would recognize Ezra before anyone else did. But other than that, I totally agree with you. I think it was. I heard someone describe this as anticlimactic. I expected more of Ezra's big reunion, other than just being, "Oh, I'm home," and that's it. And they cut. We don't get anything else. Not even a hug. Come on.
Yeah.
Like I definitely want a lot more than that. As a Rebels fan, I think that they needed more for the Rebels fan to show more than simply And yeah, it made no sense. Why did he have his helmet on still? Why didn't he just immediately announce himself as Ezra? The big reveal is just for dramatic effect. It was a bit cheesy.
Yeah, I mean, imagine coming to the radio was identified, and he would have been, was it Spectre 4? Or I can't remember what everybody had a code in Rebels.
Yeah.
But, you know, it would have been cool if there was something like that. I mean, I get the cinematicness of the reveal, but again, it felt so forced. Sorry.
I can't disagree with anything that you guys said about it. All I'll say is that like in the show, when there have been moments, and I've talked about it before, that where the show really feels, you can really feel the animated roots to it. Things that you would only see written or done in one of the shows, and this is one of those scenes. And as absolutely right you are about, both of you are, about everything you're saying. I'll just say that over the course of the time that Ezra was on Rebels, he had a penchant for wearing stormtrooper outfits.
Oh yeah,
a lot. So I kind of feel like it was a nod to here, you know, like he's just, you know, as right as you are. I just say that, like, maybe that's why, you know, like they just wanted to give a nod to the, again, probably shouldn't keep doing nods to just the fans that have seen Rebels. It's appreciated, but like I feel like that's just another nod to the show of Ezra's grown up and he's still wearing stormtrooper outfits, you know. And it was to get so that we'd have that heartfelt moment with Chopper being the usually sarcastic, bombastic one, seeing his friend for the first time in a long time. And I'll forgive it because of that, because it's just, it's Chopper being emotional instead of and
instead of a war
but it
criminal.
does still point out the fact that, like, the more it's gone on and where we left things and everything is, and where we could have cut things out. Yeah, I mean, or add 2 more episodes. That's, you know.
Yeah. and you know, you're quite right, because I even thought about him with his stormtrooper helmet collection and such like that. That Ezra had with that. So I mean, I gave it a certain amount of forgiveness in there, but it was one of those things where I was just like, what, you don't know who this is? I mean, it'd be one thing if you ran in thinking it was Ezra or thinking that it might be, and then the stormtrooper walks down, and then they stop us a bit, and then he pulls off the, you know, again,
Or they have a little moment where they're like, hey, everybody, pull your guns out on him. It'll be really funny.
Don't just make him feel it. We got to go with it. He'll love it. He'll love it. Yeah. Now, the one thing that I know that we are going to have forever, I think, from Star Wars moving forward, is definitely going to be Force Ghost Anakin. Nice final shot of Hayden Christensen there, which I really liked. I do like the idea of that last moment between Sabine and Ahsoka when he's like, yeah, Ezra got home. Ezra is where he needs to be, just like we are. You know, it sets up for your season 2 or whatever. Like, we're accepting where we are. Honestly, I was thinking very much like Living Force Qui-Gon Jinn coming out of Ahsoka in these kind of like little moments, which I thought was kind of cool. And I do love Force Ghost Anakin looking on after Ahsoka. After that, it's a great little bit to end on. But look, man, Hayden Christensen, he's going to be doing this job for the rest of his life now. And really, power to him, to be perfectly honest. I'm fine with that. I'm not a huge Hayden Christensen fan, but I appreciate the fact that he gets to come back and do this role, and the fans are all over him. But yeah, they used him a lot in this series. We had a World Beyond Worlds version of him. You had ancient Betamax projectile version, projection version of him, and now we get Force Ghost version of him. Which I think is this the first time we've seen Force Ghost version of him since the remade episode 4 or 6. Yeah, with the Ewoks.
Yeah, I really like this moment too. As I said, episode 5, I absolutely loved. I thought it was a pure genius. I loved when they brought Anakin back for that and said the sort of pay it off. But more like, I love how they paid it off with Ahsoka sort of becoming a new person, becoming at peace with the fact that he was her master, because that's obviously something she wasn't okay with before that. And I like how they touched on that in the earlier episodes of the show. And then that's something she'd learned to appreciate. And I loved how she put that thinking more towards Sabine, saying, I'm going to show that same devotion to you that he showed to me. And that's what I should have done from the beginning. And so this does look good for season 2, that she is going to have time being stuck in this other galaxy to sort of grow with Sabine and together and actually have a sort of real sort of master princess relationship. And I guess Force ghosts can travel to other galaxies, so that, whatever with that. But maybe he can follow B wherever she is or whatever. But I'm fine with that. But I love how he sort of approves and sort of the spirit of him looming over this relationship as she grows to become a better Jedi and become a better sort of master, better learner, teacher. And so, yeah, I did think that was a good way to end the episode.
Nice. Rob?
It was great.
Okay, perfect.
No, I mean, I love it. I don't think Hayden's been, I think Hayden, just like Jake Lloyd, has been kind of the curse of that character and the curse of what those movies did to them. I mean, I'm happy that if he wants to embrace this, I hope he does. I still say, if you haven't seen him in Life as a House, back made around the same time as Attack of the Clones, he was very good in that with Kevin Kline. Fantastic. So check that out if you want to see good Hayden Christensen from back in the day. And maybe this will open up more doors for him too, like more current, like maybe he'll get some Marvel work. Who knows? Like we need more people for X-Men characters. So, I could see him as Cyclops.
Yeah, no, that's good. I mean, I was always on board with Hayden Christensen being a good actor because of movies like Life as a House. I think there was another one. He played like a reporter or something. I can't remember that one. He was good in that. It's just
Glass House, like
Glass something.
Glass something, yeah.
Was it Glass House? It might have been.
No, I got House on the brain.
Well, anyway, whatever. Yeah, and he was. Yeah, so he's actually a decent actor. It's just George Lucas doesn't know how to write and direct. And I think you see that here, and a lot. I think honestly, like the episode 5 in particular, is his redemption, his showing everyone. Now, a lot of people say that it's been years, so he's had time to sort of train and become a better actor. But I think it showed like his range and what he could do, and I think a lot of people were surprised by that. And I was like, well, if he's given good writing and good directing and something to do, that he's actually a really decent actor.
No, I mean, look, I have my issues with the prequels, but I had not too long ago actually rewatched episode 2. One of the worst, the sand and everything episode. And to be honest, stepping back and giving kind of a more of a critical viewpoint of the performance he's trying to do on that. To me, all of the problems is not his performance; it's the direction and the writing, because there is even a line with some minor editing and rearranging of a couple of scenes, the whole love story arc between he and Padme actually works. The chemistry between the two of them, there are moments that totally work. If you just remove that first kiss and then like switch these two other scenes so that the arc is slowly falling in love until that last moment where she's just like, man, you're awesome. Before they get, she gets the midriff attack on the field. I think that a lot of that actually in the relationship works, and you can see that Hayden is trying to do something. He's just burdened by very clunky dialogue, and I think some poor direction.
And the work that the guy put in physically for those roles, for that role, for 3 movies, all that extra work, and just to still be, nobody ever talks about any of that. We just talk about the terrible dialogue that drags down these movies, and it's like so much work. We are totally off topic now, basically. But I mean, now we're just into talking about the failure of the prequels. And I'll stop. I'm just gonna stop.
Well, and look, and some of them love them, and that's great. And he's their Anakin, and all this. I've always been more partial to Clone Wars Anakin. To me, that's a beautiful manifestation.
Oh no!
If you could redo Episode 3, but Clone Wars, and use that to me, that would be freaking awesome.
Sorry, it's like an objective fact that Clone Wars Anakin is better. That he was just written better, performed better. But the thing is that Hayden Christensen said that preparing for this role, watch all of Clone Wars and Rebels, and he even said, I saw what they were doing with this character, and I really liked it. And so it's obvious he picked up on that and performed that way in this. So it wasn't him that was the issue.
No, he even, I mean, really, if we're going to go into the full on for Anakin here, for Hayden Christensen, he actually picked up a lot of the animated characters' body language and such when they were out on the fields, and the way that he hang and talked. I mean, you could see it's like, oh, you are mixing that character with your character to make this kind of new thing. And I definitely got to give props to him for taking on that additional level for it, which I think just adds depth and connection between the movies and the animated shows.
And honestly, I want more Anakin Force Ghosts in season 2.
Yeah, no, and I think you would. I think that will be. I think Anakin's here to stay for quite a while, and it's something that you can do while avoiding having more Luke Skywalker, but still being able to use the actor that played them. Because I love Mark Hamill.
Star Wars needs a Ben Kenobi, and it'd be crazy that it's Anakin.
That it would be Darth Vader. Yeah,
Darth Vader.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's kind of perfect full circle that goes on with all that. So yeah, I'm good with that. So hopefully we will get a season 2, which I would assume would deal with what's going on Peridea mainly, since that's where Ahsoka is, and that's the name of the show. I would assume that would also eventually get them back to our galaxy in whatever turnabout kind of way, whether it be, waiting for the Purgle to come back, or World Between Worlds, or whatever Balin is finding, if that is part of the power that can move them those distances or whatever. I don't feel like a lot of Thrawn would necessarily be part of an Ahsoka season 2, but I don't know where Thrawn is going to be. I mean, it's not like there's a Mandalorian connection. Ezra's back, so are we going to have a new Ezra series, or is this going to be
I think Thrawn is definitely going to be in the next season of Mandalorian. I think that is definitely going to be the case. And also, I think that within Ahsoka season 2, you could have Thrawn in, just like in this season. You could have him in the last 3 or 4 episodes when they get back to the other galaxy.
Yeah, it just, again, now that they're all separated and everything.
I wouldn't, if we did have an Ahsoka season 2, I would not want to spend the entire season in this galaxy. I think they definitely need to get back to the other one.
Oh, I agree. Well,
I wouldn't be surprised if it's Rebels season 5, Ahsoka season 2, Mandalorian season 3 or 4 needs to just stay out of shit and make its own little fun stories again. and then have an Heir to the Empire movie or something along those terms. Because I think Thrawn should be the threat in Rebels, and I think Ahsoka needs to deal with her own thing there. Because and when you look at how this show was, it was a really tight, small, like distance-wise, big, but story-wise, pretty contained outside of the Hera stuff. And I think that budget-wise and things, they probably want to keep them kind of contained.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, because there's plenty of characters on that planet to deal with, and if they want to keep that like 6 to 8 episode thing, they wouldn't have to jump around to Hera and have all these other things that don't mean anything, like in the long run. To this, what's going to happen? And I think that Thrawn out there, like Ahsoka's goal is to get back, but I think she'll get back to whenever they're going to be the big like Avengers movie type, like let's call it an Avengers movie, the big Star Wars event movie, the Heir to the Empire movie, where a bunch of things all connect to have it all blah blah blah, and at the end of it, the First Order.
Well, I feel like, and I think I've heard this before of some official place or whatever, but that all the Mandalorian season 4 and other projects, I can't remember whether it was the Acolyte or Skeleton Crew or something like that. No, Acolyte's taking place in the past. The Skeleton Crew or something like that. There's going to be other shows, and they're all going to be like sort of building up to this big movie. So I feel like Thrawn's going to be in all of that.
Yeah, I mean, and set him up as the big bad for the background for all these things. I think that works really well. But yeah, it does feel like he needs kind of his own focus story, and then touching on whatever these other things are happening. Because I'm also with you, Rob. While I don't mind Mandalorian getting into Thrawn's story, I also like the fact that he's got his own sequence of stories in this timeline and universe that is part of his world. So I would hate for everything to be forced together, but I don't know.
Well, see, I'm one of those weird people who liked Mandalorian season 3 and actually liked it better in season 1. I don't want them to go back to the episode, the Battle of the Week, where they're doing 7 samurai every single episode. I was sick of that, and I want it to be more connected to the wider story. But again,
well, no, I mean, I think they're definitely moving towards that. I guess for me, it's like, as long as it makes sense that I'm with it, I just don't want it to feel like it's sort of forced or shoehorned into that is really the main thing.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I mean, I think that pretty much covers the series as a whole. Is there any final thoughts or ideas that we missed, you guys wanted to throw out or discuss?
I think we pretty much nailed it.
We've been talking for over an hour and a half.
I mean, we were going off topic. That's how great,
Wow. Now, as I had sort of intimated before, we just missed, or I guess it just wrapped up a little while ago, the season 2 premiere of Loki, which I really loved the first season. It's actually, I think, it's my favorite streaming Disney Plus series of Phase 4, and is definitely one of my favorite things out of Phase 4, of which I have a lot of mixed emotions overall. However, I will not be doing a regular weekly coverage of Loki season 2. One is, it's taken my time slot. This is the time in the week that I've set aside, Thursday nights at 6. That's when it's dropping. So I would have to try and watch it real quick and then do it immediately post-show break. My schedule's up in the air, to be honest. Things have been slow, so I've been trying to put in more hours in at work. And the less distractions that I have at the moment, the better. In addition, look, SAG-AFTRA is still on strike. And as a SAG-AFTRA member, I'm not supposed to be promoting any shows. Ahsoka is something that I already had committed to doing before we had the strike. And it's something that I think I've been able to say very fair and even of not promoting the show, of trying to do a fair review. And to be honest, I think Loki, I would like too much. I'm hoping so. And I haven't been able to really do any social media stuff or anything like that. which is really kind of frustrating in some ways like this. But of course, I totally understand. So to avoid any of those conflicts and issues until the union has a contract with the MPTP, I'm not going to cover any more of the current series of shows. I may still pop up on other people's channels, having other discussions and things. And hopefully, maybe by the end of the season, I can do a big season discussion or something like that. But as of for the moment, at least on my channel, I'm not going to be covering that all very weekly. So I'll miss seeing and talking about all this stuff. I'm really hoping that it's a show to be very excited about, but we'll just have to kind of wait and see. And then Echo, I think they're still dropping all at once, maybe at the end of the year. I know that's maybe it got moved to next February. Everything's all up in the air, but none of this is going to be settled out until, well, the writers have gotten their stuff figured out, but I've got to do the reverses. SAG still needs to get their contracts done. So until then, I think I'm going to put a hold on my regular reviews of shows. Will anybody else be talking about these new Marvelous shows in case people want to follow one of you's tours? I know, Rob, you said something about trying to restart some of your stuff.
Well, I see when we're done, I'm watching it. It says it's 48 minutes. Let's just talk about that for a second. So you're looking at it again. 43. So you're looking at about 40 minutes for the first episode of Loki season 2. For anybody who wants to know that hasn't already watched it.
It's close to standard network length there.
If I'm gonna grab a pen, I'm gonna grab a little piece of paper, and I'm gonna watch it. And if I think that there's something worth talking about, I'm gonna jump on my Twitch channel, SmirkingRobPlays, and I'll jump on my StreamYard from there and talk about it. If it's not worth talking about, I won't do it, but I'm gonna leave my mind open to cover some stuff because I just need to flex the muscle again on my own channel and get my voice back. So it's probably gonna be stupid and rough, but I need something to get it back because I'm hoping to be back within a couple of weeks. It all depends on whether or not my tech can do what I need it to do at a bare minimum.
Sure.
Like I just needed to do the bare minimum of work, and I'll be back to making content again. And it's mostly going to be stuff that I just want to do, but but I owe some reviews to people. I have a definite video I want to make that's like, if I suddenly said this is going to be the first thing, one of the first things back, people would be like, huh? What? Why that movie? And I hope that movie, that question makes you want to watch it. So I'm really positive right now about coming back, but I'm not gonna force it. I'm gonna start talking about little things here and there, and as I figure out my setup and if everything works good, yeah, I'll probably be talking about Loki season 2 and maybe on YouTube, maybe on Twitch. We'll see how it all goes. But coming, and if anybody wants, if you feel like join in later, if anybody feels like joining later, if I start doing them, and it's just gonna be for fun again, like we're doing now. I don't really care about subscribers and anything anymore, so I just don't. I just want to talk about things that I want to talk about and have fun talking about it. So Smirking Reviews should be back and up and going in some capacity, a lot more than it was last year. Because last year, I think all I really did was The Last of Us and a few things here and there. And it's time. I got the itch back to talk about things. So you can check me out at Smirking Reviews or SmirkingRobPlays, where we are still having a lot of fun with Baldur's Gate 3. Watch me stumble my way through this game. I love it. I love it so much. So yeah, that's just me, everybody.
Excellent. And of course, if you're looking for any Star Trek coverage, this is the guy right here.
Yeah. So to your question about Loki, so I'm with Loki, I'll be doing what I usually do for most Marvel shows, is waiting till the season's over and doing one video for it. Like you, I'm too busy. Got a lot of other stuff going on. I'm doing enough with my YouTube channel. Ahsoka was a show I was excited for so much, and I really wanted that I was willing to sort of set aside the time, and it has been taking a toll because I've been covering that and Lower Decks at the same time, plus doing the Next Generation reviews. So I need a break. And I'll be focusing more on my Next Generation, or I'll be finish my coverage of Lower Decks, but after that I'll just be focusing on the Next Generation reviews because for those who don't know, I'm going through every single Star Trek episode in order. I've covered all the original series. I'm up to season 1 of the Next Generation. And that's kind of easier to do because I've seen these episodes a billion times. I can just sit there in my leisure, watch it again, come and talk about it. So yeah, so it's less time consuming, so I need to have some more free time to get back on everything. So yeah, once Lower Decks is finished, I'll just be doing my Next Generation reviews and some live streams with this guy here. Where am I? This way. This guy here on Star Trek as well. Yeah, so sort of more focusing on Star Trek. But as I said, once Loki season 2 is finished, will do a video giving my overall thoughts on the season, which I know doesn't get as many views or isn't as popular. But again, like Rob, I kind of don't care about views anymore. So yeah, so that's what's going on Enchantment of Eternity.
Excellent, excellent. So if you have not yet, please go over to Enchantment of Eternity, go down to Smirking Reviews, be sure to subscribe, hit the notification buttons, so all their new stuff will be dropped into your box, and you'll know about it as soon as it's out. That way you won't be waiting for things. And of course, I'm Dee. This is Dee's Reviews. Thank you all so much for joining us for tonight's episode for this entire season, as we talked about Ahsoka, and there may be some stuff coming up in the near future when I can find some time. If you are subscribed, hit that notifications button, and you will know as soon as anything we are doing drops. Until then, thank you all so much for joining us. Thank you to Stinger B Company and Rita Dietrich, who managed to jump in. Looks like as soon as Loki ended, but thanks for jumping in with the show. I know you're watching it all in the archives, and we appreciate all of you too. Have a great night, and we'll catch you all soon. Bye-bye.